what are some of the stigmas in the black community? Because I think when it comes to mental health, just in our community, I'm just gonna keep it real. I feel like we've been kind of behind on that end. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel like it's a lot of things that play into that. Which I got a whole list, which I'm not gonna get into right now. But what are some of the stigmas that you would like to see gone?
Well, so you're right. There is a stigma related to mental health. I have my own theories about it. Number one, the stigma just doesn't deal with the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
It deals with just the community as a whole. Mental health should be the same as physical health, because there's enough studies that show that mental health affects your physical health, and your physical health can affect your mental health. So we don't need to divide it. If you think about it, if you go to the doctor, if you hadn't been to the doctor for like 10 years, and in those 10 years you had a couple falls, you scraped your leg, you fell down some stairs that didn't heal quite well, after a while, when you got older, stuff wouldn't work right. And you might have some real big issues because you never took care of them.
Oh, okay.
So that's the same way that mental health is. We all have things that happen to us over time that is going to mess with your mental health, like grief, loss, challenges, divorces, trauma from all types of things, car wrecks. All of these different things are like a tap, 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 tap on your mental health. And if you have a healthy place to express that, then normally it won't become into a bigger thing. But what we sometimes wait to do in our communities is we wait until it gets to an extreme, and then we say, I need help. But it's like, by that point, it's the extreme, whereas mental health should be a weekly, monthly, or even, let's say, like a yearly checkup. There should be a yearly mental health checkup where you just go and you check up and you say, hey, my mental health seems like it's okay, but I really should be talking about the loss of my grandmother. It's not something that I think is a big problem, but hey, maybe we should just talk about it.
It's almost like as though we compartmentalize to a point where it's like, okay, now it's extreme.
Right. And that's all of this is just learned behavior. And so in the African American community, I can say that because I'm part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. You look like you're part of it, actually.
No, I look like I'm part of it. I think when I walk down the street, they tell that I'm a part of it.
Yeah, all day.
In the African American community, because that's not a learned behavior. Now, before we press judgment on that, realize that for a long period of time, mental health doesn't get taken care of when people are trying to survive. So we have a long period of time where people of African descent were trying to survive. So when you're trying to survive, you're not thinking about how do you feel about that trauma that happened to you last night? We just trying to eat.
We're trying to live.
We're trying to live.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that news and watching that person get lynched? I don't know. I'm just trying to survive. We got to keep going.
I don't want to see it happen to me.
I don't want to see it happen to me. But I have to keep going, because if I take the time to stop, it might happen to me. So we have generational time where there was no time or no resources to actually have that, to be able to deal with our mental health. And when we did talk about it, it was, of course, in the safest place that we could be, which is what?
Home.
What's the safer place than even home? Where do African Americans go to heal
church.
themselves? In church. So the first therapists for the African American community are what? The pastor, the minister, the deacon.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. However, there are people that are actually trained, and if you're a trained pastor, they train you on these things to do that. However, we need to make sure that we're open to the fact that there are people out here of African descent that are capable of talking, and that it's okay for you to talk. And God usually puts people in place for you to talk to. So those people that's like, oh, I'm just going to talk to God. Okay. No, God says for you to get wise counsel, So you're supposed to get somebody else to talk to and have counsel, so you don't have to deal with everything by yourself. And that's what mental health is for, and that's what it should be for our community. I think it's getting better. You got Charlemagne the God, and you got all the other people talking about it. And so I think we're in a position where people are starting to realize that it doesn't matter if you're, African American, Hispanic, especially a male, because I think males, we need it the most. We need to be able to have that umbrella of emotion so that the only emotion that doesn't come out is anger. It's like, oh, I'm sad. Anger. You know what? I feel uneasy. Anger. I'm scared. Anger. We need to have a plethora of emotions to be able to share that to people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Charlemagne, definitely one of the advocates for mental health that we get to see. What I like is we seeing more black men get involved with that. And I think, and not especially for men, I know I'm going off a little bit, but I think for black men it is hard, just based on what you're saying, because our whole lives we're taught to be strong. You're saying we're taught like, no.
Well, what is strength? So, that's the question. What is strength then? Because as men, we're taught to be strong. But what is strength? So strength is a plethora of things. I think when you can be able to manage your emotions, that's actually true strength. Because anybody can just flip out.
Yeah.
Anybody can
that's
flip
easy
out.
to do.
You can go to jail.
It's easy to do,
flip
man.
out.
Yeah.
But it takes a person to be able to feel the energy of someone else and be able to process and say, is this the right time? Do I protect myself? And if you really watch people who are really like, warriors or fighters or MMA fighters or anything, they're really calm when everything's happening because they've built their mental strength and their mental health to the point where they have the true strength, which is, I'm not out of control. I'm okay with myself to the point, and I'm comfortable with myself that I'm not out of control. And once again, all of this is different levels for different people, and it's just a practice.
We talk about all this mental health, things that you do to help people. How has therapy helped you?
Man, therapy was great for me. Like, before I became a therapist, I had to go under supervision. And whenever I was under supervision, it was actually the first time that I actually dealt with therapy. Because you have to be with another therapist for like 2 years. And the cool thing about therapy is...
So that's what you mean by supervision?
Yeah, so basically you go to school, you get your master's. After your bachelor's, you go to school, you get a master's. After that master's, you have to go roughly under 2 years. I think it's like 3,000 hours of like supervision. So you do this time of supervision, and during that time, of course, you have a supervisor who's a licensed therapist who supervises you. And during that time, you end up talking about a lot of your own personal stuff. And what I got out of it was not only sharing my emotions about things that happened in my past, but it's that aha moment. It's that moment where you're in session and the counselor says something to you, and they say, you think that could be because of this? And you say, I never thought of it that way.
It's like a realization.
And you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
That is. That's why that is. And it frees you from that situation. So that's what I always try to get from my clients, is to get them to the point where they have that aha moment. And once you have that aha moment, it's like opening a door. And it even might feel uncomfortable, but it opens them to a different place of thinking, and then it frees them from the old way of thinking, and now they can process that.
I've had those moments before.
You've had that.
It's gratifying, actually.
It's very gratifying.
It's extremely gratifying.
It becomes less confusing.
And even when you reach a realization, you know what changes have to be made. So, sometimes change is a hard thing, because a lot of times you're forced to do things within a change that's making you uncomfortable. But it's gratifying because you feel a sense of control. At least for me.
Right.
That's how I feel.
And I always try to tell people that mental health is the same as physical health. So usually when you go to the gym and you're trying to work out, right, you hit the bench, it feels good. But when you get to a different level, you have to lift that weight. In the beginning, it hurts. But when you start to realize that pain is a good thing, you realize, okay, I gotta hit a different weight. But once you actually lift that weight and you say, oh, I can lift that weight,
yeah,
then it is gratifying. Not saying that it doesn't cause you kind of strain or uncomfortableness, but you feel like, okay, I achieved something. And not only that,
yes.
Once you've achieved that weight, you always know that you can always hit it. You always know you can achieve that level of communication. You always know that you have that. I like to call it.
It's almost like I leveled up, you know?
You leveled up, and I give people what's called coping skills toolkits, which is like, in their book, they learn these skills. So as they level up, they learn different skills. And then if you know that skill, you'll always be able to bench press. You'll always be able to hit that curl.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you understand the form, you understand exactly how to do it, and the way that it's supposed to go. So that's really a blessing. I feel like it's helped me immensely, and I think that me watching my clients as well do well is really gratifying to me. Because you really realize that people are really going through stuff,
mm-hmm.
and then I realize that everybody's going through stuff. So when I hear people talk about mental health and they're like, oh, I don't need a counselor, I'm like, I've seen enough people.
Yeah.
At some point, by doing counseling over 10 years, I'm not saying I've seen everybody, but I've seen enough of the same people in the same situations and how people deal with them that I realize that everybody needs counseling sometime in their life. They need to talk about it.
So it does not matter who you are, okay? It don't, social status.
Definitely social status.
Social status don't matter. It don't matter whether you black, white, red, green, yellow. Universal is for everyone.
Especially if you higher up. Especially if you're doing high level things. And we've seen that in the news recently as well.
News recently as well? Well, speaking of the news, let's we might as well go ahead and talk about it, man. Since you just went into, you opened it up, so we got to talk about it, man.
I don't know if they've heard it. Does anybody want us to talk about it?
Chris Rock said something. Will Smith felt compelled that he had to go up on stage and slap Chris Rock in the face.
Yeah.
Where do you think Will Smith was at mentally?
When somebody gets to that level, it has nothing to do with the actual scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I can't tell you what the pressures that Will Smith was at, but I can say that, from looking at excerpts from his book and some of the challenges that he had and some of the abuse and different things he has to be at this pinnacle. He went and he just simply was triggered.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Chris Rock, but he was triggered. And I guess the part that I really didn't like wasn't even necessarily the actions that happened with Chris Rock. It was the reaction of the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know Jada, and also Jada. But I don't know her. I'm not trying to judge. I don't know you, Jada. But it was Jada's reaction. Number one, there's a thing called groupthink, like group dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And when he slapped that person, people were looking, just psychologically, people were looking at other people to see what to do.
Yeah.
They saw someone assault someone. They saw the dude step back. They wanted Chris Rock to be okay with it. And when Chris Rock made a joke about it, they laughed because they wanted to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if Chris Rock had not laughed, they would have been less okay of it. But the fact that they even let Will Smith stay in there and then accept his award,
yeah,
and then they went and asked the accuser,
yeah,
they went to the back and asked the accuser and said, hey, do you think we should get him?
Do you want us to do something about it?
Do you want us to do something about it?
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous because you shouldn't put that on him because he just got assaulted. And then to tie it all up, people clap, raise their hands. And I'm a Will Smith fan, by the way. I literally, before all this happened, I was listening to his motivational stuff, right? But after it happened, everybody stood up. they clapped, and then you had all of these people talking about, yeah, that's right, standing up for his woman. And I'm thinking to myself, so you telling me that if your kid was at an assembly or at a comedy show, and it's another kid doing comedy and he makes fun of him, it's okay for your kid to jump up on stage and slap? Or if I was at a company get-together, and there's a comedian that's brought in to do comedy, and he makes fun of my wife's shoes, I should be able to get up, run up on stage, smack, walk back, and then y'all are gonna tell me I was protecting my wife.
Yeah. In the name of protection.
From words, so I had to physically assault her because the words hurt her. And he didn't say nothing like, you know, a bad word like you be. He didn't say nothing like that. He just talked about her, and he's a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So me, personally, I'm really not concerned with Will Smith as much. What I'm concerned with is Chris Rock. And people are concerned with Chris Rock because he already was going to therapy for being bullied. And it doesn't make sense that the attention went completely on Will.
Yeah.
Because Chris Rock was assaulted on national TV and it's getting replayed forever. I watched the memes. This is really what it is. And I apologize to anyone that I've never met before in Hollywood for this. But Will Smith was dealing with a lot. And as a man, and you know this, he was publicly humiliated, right? And he was not publicly supported.
See,
and because of all of these factors that happened over and over and over and over and over again, and the fact that his significant other did not publicly support him in that time, I think he just had a chip on his shoulder. And what I had a problem with is that even to this day, if he publicly supported you during your entanglement, I just think that you should have publicly supported him during this Chris Rock thing. And she just came out with a statement stating that, you know, she didn't agree that the fact that he did it, but you sat there and you smiled and laughed.
And so, I think he did it. You know what? I think
this has nothing to do with therapy. I'm just talking gossip. Forgive me. I shouldn't be really up here gossiping, but I'm just saying, like, I've been talking back and forth with all different types of people. They're like, oh, he should have done. I'm like, okay. I just feel like the focus should be on that, and I really hope, hey, Will, Jada, if you see me, I'm a therapist. I'm in Oklahoma. Probably one of the better ones you've met. I know I'm not in big time, but hey, I can hook y'all up with some people, man, because y'all need some deep therapy, and it ain't going to be on Red Table Talk. It had nothing to do with Chris Rock. It had everything to do with deep down pain of Will Smith. And imagine this. He's been hiding all that pain behind 1 million smiles. 1 million smiles. And he finally got the moment. And he just did it like Denzel Washington.
I mean, well, luckily it was just a slap, okay?
Like Denzel Washington said, when you get to that level, that's when the devil comes in. He got to the point, at the highest point of his life, he was about to do something, like win an Oscar. And at that moment, he just couldn't smile anymore. And he just flipped. And that just should tell you that obviously he needed an outlet to do that consistently with his wife, to speak about those things that hurt him. And even though he was smiling, he was hurting inside.
Yep.
Which is the reason why we all need to have therapy consistently, because you just never know when all those things bundle up. And even if someone's smiling and making millions of dollars and they're at the top of their game and they're doing all of this and all that, at the end of the day, they might be 1 second away from flipping out. So we have to be able to understand that mental health is not something that you do every now and then. It should be something. And me being a therapist, I go see a therapist.